Welcome back to Rise and Shine. Now, he was fired by Donald Trump on the first season of The Apprentice. That must be so bad to hear. But Kwame Jackson has proven that you can't keep a savvy man down.
That's right.
No, you can't. Now, he's a successful entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and a corporate consultant. And I guess you can say he's all business. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me so early on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And I'm the only person in the history of Apprentice to not be fired. He said, you know, Kwame, we're not hiring you right now. So I never, if you look for all the video footage, you'll never see a you're fired.
See, well, that's pretty amazing.
A nice way
I dodged it.
Nice, nice. So we've read up a lot about you, right? And you've kind of packed in a lot.
I've been trying to live a little bit.
So where did you grow up?
I was born in Washington, D.C., but I was raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I am a Southern boy. I am a Tar Heel and loved it.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, you said you grew up with Claire and Heathcliff Huxtable. Explain that for me.
I did. A lot of times as a professional speaker, I give the background about how I grew up, and I often say that I grew up Cosby, which at that time was a good thing. And we'll talk about whether that's a bad thing now. But I did. I mean, my mom was the first person in our family to go to college, had her own independent accounting firm. My Nigerian stepfather was, you know, a doctor who was self-made and had his own practice. And so my parents were versions of Cliff and Claire. And all of their friends were, you know, in the Jack and Jill segments of America and other professionals, lawyers and doctors. And so that's how I grew up, which was a great blessing. But now that word is taken on a different context.
Right, sure.
Yeah. So tell us about college.
Yeah, college was great. I'm a UNC Chapel Hill Tar Heel from the University of North Carolina, just like Stuart Scott I saw in your previous segment, so rest in peace, my friend. But had a great time there, was a really supportive community. I majored in business, so I was at the Kingdom Flagler Business School and have kind of done that my whole life and continue to do that as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So afterwards, you began working in a startup.
I did. So the transition was I went to the University of North Carolina. I worked for Procter & Gamble for a while, so did everything in terms of selling, you know, Tide and Sunny Delight and Scope and all the things you guys have in your cabinets, and really learned about the world of marketing from one of the best in the field. And then from there, I went on to Harvard Business School, where I got my MBA and was there at the kind of the height of the .com era, when I used to tell people the strategy was you take a salt shaker and you add .com and salt.com and you get $5 million in funding. And that was, you know, the beginning of the internet. And so 98 to 2000 was when I was there, and that was a great experience. And then from there, I went on to Goldman Sachs to work on Wall Street and their internet division and private wealth. And the startup background is when I was at business school, people saw me so actively involved in kind of the .com community that they took a play on my name. They used to call me .Quam. So they're like, oh, .Quam, what are you involved in? You're in this startup, you're in that startup. And I actually worked on a precursor to Facebook in '99, a company called Mascot Network, which was America's first kind of social network, where we were selling a vertical start page to colleges. So everything that people did in the student union world or the brick and mortar world, we were selling it online. And what's funny is colleges always said, you know, why exactly would people want to see people's pictures online and interact with people when they could do that in the real world? And we were 3 years too early. So God bless Mark Zuckerberg. He got all the money.
So how did you end up on The Apprentice?
That's an interesting story as well. So I was working at Goldman Sachs at the time, right after 2000. And I always say that I got to Wall Street at the end of the party. So if you imagine that run up 95, 96, 97, it's like your friend says, hey, there's this great party, you need to get here. And you get there and the cops are there and all the drinks are gone and the lights are on and the music is off. That's when I got to Wall Street. And so I was there, and it was an interesting time to kind of build a business. But then after 9/11, which I was also a survivor of, and then after the .com implosion, there were a lot of different things going on in my life. And so a friend of mine who was over at another firm buzzed me up and said, hey, have you heard about this new show, The Apprentice? You know, they're casting folks to go on and do business tasks with Donald Trump and NBC. You know, we should go for it. And I told him, you know, I don't know. I got more rich people to call, you know, to try to build my business. And so he reached out actually to Mark Burnett Productions, because when I did The Apprentice, it was a concept show. It wasn't 17 seasons in. It wasn't this global platform. So he just cold called Mark Burnett Productions and said, you know, my name is XYZ and my friend Kwame is, you know, also an Ivy League MBA grad and a fellow Wall Streeter, and we'd like to get an interview. And so what was funny was he's also African American. So the guy said, hey, don't worry about applying. You know, meet me in New York. We're going to do this special interview because we don't have a whole lot of guys like you applying. So when we met him in New York, we broke the ice by saying, hey, you know, we know there can only be one brother on the show because it's a reality TV rule, so only one of us is going to be hired. So he did that and he hired me. So that's how I made it on The Apprentice.
You know, you said something interesting because you're a survivor, you said, of 9/11. You know, and that to me sort of created for you, it looks like that's part of what your destiny is, to go on and do great things. How does it feel?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, my mom passed away at a young age. My mom was 41. She passed of cancer. I was 15 at the time. I've had a lot of tragic loss, unfortunately, in my family. My brother passed away in a motorcycle accident several years back. And even after 9/11, you know, I lost some friends from the University of North Carolina. A friend of mine passed away there. And I think what I learned from that experience in terms of being a survivor is tomorrow is truly not promised. And opportunities don't always come in neatly dressed packages. I always say, as a speaker, opportunities come in packages that you don't always recognize. They're often dressed in overalls and look like work. And you don't know exactly how you're going to tackle that opportunity. And so I definitely know tomorrow's not promised, and I'm definitely a live for today kind of guy. And, you know, I also plan, and I'm a little bit methodical in business, but at the same time, I know that, you know, you're not going to be here necessarily tomorrow, so you got to live for today.
Smart businessman.
So how did you use that philosophy of tomorrow is always not promised on The Apprentice?
Well, on The Apprentice, what I think you saw for me is a lot of people said, oh, I flew under the radar. You know, I didn't get involved in a lot of the drama and controversy. And what I was trying to do was do what my grandma always said, which is I'm from the South, and it's a very Southern thing to say, act like you have a little home training. And grandma would just say, you know, act like you have a little home training. So that's what I tried to do. I mean, I tried to act like I had some manners, that I had been a few places, that, you know, I'd had professional experience on Wall Street. And so for me, you know, the Donald Trumps of the world and all the other big names.
You've done business with them before.
Didn't necessarily intimidate me. You know, he puts his pants on just like I do, one leg at a time.
Except you have better hair.
Thank you. You know, I'm trying to keep it all together. And so for me, it was all about, one, taking this opportunity to be myself, take this opportunity to kind of brand myself as an entrepreneur and see where this platform might take me. And at that time, I was like, oh, I can always go back to Wall Street if it doesn't work out. Whereas, you know, the environment we're in now, it's like people might not job hop or go in opportunities. Like, so I just kind of seized the day in that top opportunity.
So speaking of, how was it, speaking of personalities, how was it working with Omarosa?
Omarosa is interesting. I will not throw her under the bus because she has had some troubles, and you know, I think her, you know, her boyfriend passed away, and her brother had some issues. So I won't throw her under the bus, but she was very interesting. I mean, you know, at the time, I mean, this 10 years ago, she was prickly, and we all have those people who we work with in the office. But you know, Omarosa is a unique case.
So are you still friendly with Omarosa and Bill Cosby?
I'm friends, I think, with Bill. I always say The Apprentice is like high school. You know how you have a few friends who you still keep up with, and they might find you on Facebook. Well, Troy McClain is a really good friend of mine. He was kind of the country, really good figure that I connected with. And then Katrina Campins out of Miami were really good friends. And I reach out to Bill from time to time as well.
I've always wanted to know what happens to all of the other contestants. Are they all successful? Do they are they rich? Are they making millions?
Well, you know, people always say, well, what did you get out of The Apprentice? Did they pay you X, Y, Z? And it's like, at that time, no. I think the runner-up got a small check and the winner gets a check, but everybody else, you didn't get anything. So there's a gentleman on Facebook who kind of collected all of the Celebrity Apprentice and regular Apprentice alumni. So we have this little network where we kind of can, you know, talk and converse. But, you know, it's 70, 80 odd people now at this time, so you never know.
All right. Amazing. Well, hold that thought and stay tuned. Kwame is going to stick with us, and we'll be getting his take on the hot topics of the day. But first, we're going to check in on the events going on in Paris today when we return. So don't go away. You're watching Arise and Shine.
Welcome back to Arise and Shine, and thanks for waking up with us. Kwame Jackson is back with us, yay! And I guess part of being a successful in business is keeping your pulse on current events.
Now the most recent thing that everyone's talking about in New York is Mayor Bill de Blasio. You know, cops turned their back on him because they said basically he threw them under the bus when he went out publicly and said that he tells his biracial son to watch out when he is approached by cops. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Bill de Blasio, and I think the mayor is definitely pulling the city in the right direction in terms of, pulling back from some of the over-policing, the stop and frisk, etc. But at the same time, I know that you have to be a champion for your workforce. And so the police department, NYPD, and I think the majority of police are good guys and great ladies who do their job and do it well. But we do have an issue in society, and it's an issue we have to address. It's an issue that I've had to deal with in the past, and my friends have had to deal with. I always tell my different constituents that, hey, I've got a bunch of friends who have Ivy League degrees and work on Wall Street and are lawyers, etc. But the majority of my friends have been arrested, not because they're criminals, but these are I went to Harvard Law, but I've also been arrested. And it's like, and I ask my white friends oftentimes, how many of your friends have been arrested? And it's definitely not the 95, 99 type percentile. So it's a little bit different when you have people with great backgrounds, great pedigrees, but they're still getting arrested and still having issues with police. It says something broader about our society. But, this whole issue with, Bill de Blasio's son and having to be aware of how you interact with police, it's something that we've dealt with for quite some time.
Do you think the police were right, though?
It's so right.
For doing what they did? Or how would you...
Right for doing
for turning their backs on him.
That's a dicey one. I think that if you have a political statement to make, I think it's fine. But I think the one that happened at the funeral for the Asian officer, I think that was a little bit much. I think a funeral is a place where you show respect, you show reverence for the family, the reverence for the office. I think if they choose to do that at another turn, then it's their right. Yeah. So.
I like that. So over the last few months, more than 21 women have come forward about Bill Cosby, and the latest, Phylicia Rashad kind of coming to his defense. What do you think about this scandal?
This is juicy, juicy, juicy. And unfortunately, like I said, I often tell people, and I used to say proudly, that I grew up Cosby. And I was very proud of that, about that whole notion of two African-American professional parents who had advanced degrees, who were entrepreneurs, and that whole feeling that there is a nuclear black achieving, talented 10th African-American family. And so the fact that that legacy has been tainted by, his actions, I think that that's, really a disgrace. I mean, do I think that it's true or it's not true? Obviously, I don't know, but my gut tells me, like everyone says, where there's smoke, there's fire, and this is more than smoke. There's
a blaze going on.
There's a blanket and there's signals, and it's more than 20 plus women who have come forward, including, I think, the one that really spoke to me, which was, Beverly Johnson. When people who have money, who have spotlight, and don't need either are coming forward and telling stories about, how they were, assaulted, I think that there needs to be kind of a calling to task on that. And so,
and do you think it then erases the legacy? I don't think so necessarily. I think, if we look at it, even our presidential candidates. Does it really?
Okay, so once again, having issues with women and infidelity, you look at JFK and you look at, other presidents who have done that. It's different than, someone saying that you've been a serial rapist. That's infidelity and rape, or that's two different.
That's what I'm asking.
So I think that, his legacy is tainted because of that. Unfortunately, like I said, it does take, things like wonderful programming like The Cosby Show off the air, like on TV Land, etc. And so everything that people could use to look back, like we look at Good Times, or like we look at all these other great black families that were on the TV for the longest, that will be pulled away from future generations. So I think,
so then we just have to create more. We have to create the new family.
I'm available, NBC, for my show. Rain and I, the new Cosby 2.0.
I'm telling you.
You guys are bad.
Like roll the dice and make it happen.
Trying to capitalize on somebody's poor, I don't know about you. But the one thing that he's been criticized about, him and his family, is that they haven't really responded to the allegations. Apart from saying it's absolute rubbish, all of these women are lying. There has not been a sit-down interview where he said, this happened and I can prove that these women are lying.
He's going to have his Oprah moment, just like Lance Armstrong, or he's going to have to sit on the couch and come to task. And I think he's going to have to do that for the sake of his legacy and for the sake of America, and even his global audience. And so I agree with you that you can't just say this is rubbish. I think the way that his wife responded, I didn't necessarily agree with that either. And Phylicia Rashad, obviously, God bless her, and I'm not trying to bring her down either, but the part that she said where, we can't believe these women or forget these women, she said that was a misquote. She said that was a misquote. And so I think she's tried to take the high road. But so many people, I think, they're having trouble rationalizing who they know on TV and that legacy and that character versus, you know,
that
some of these accusations.
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
yes.
You know?
All right, let's move away from sex scandals, right?
Yes.
Oh, darn it.
Who wants to do that?
That's stuff right there.
On a lighter note, of course, we're in the middle of Celebrity Apprentice.
We are.
Yes.
You're one of the pioneers of the show.
I was.
In the first one.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the current cast?
Yeah, it's been an interesting run. When I did The Apprentice, like I said, it wasn't a franchise. It wasn't in 30 countries, and it wasn't like this machine that people knew how to work.
I just want to say that's the only year, your year, that I've actually watched.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Because I was interested.
I think when we did it, in that first season being Trailblazers, it had a lot more to do with the authenticity of office dynamics. Everyone has an Omarosa. Everyone has, you know, a Bill or a Kwami or et cetera in the office. And I think people could see themselves in those everyday tasks, whether it was selling lemonade or, you know, doing an advertising campaign. I think as the pendulum has swung, it's become a little bit more circus-oriented, a little bit, you know, different.
Who's the crazy one?
But I do like the fact that they are focused on raising money for nonprofits. So I think that's wonderful, and giving back is a great thing. And so the current cast, you know, I have to pull for my boy Terrell Owens. You know, I got to pull for the brother to make sure he's doing his thing. I've heard that Kenya Moore is doing really well, and I've also heard that Geraldo's doing well, of all people. You know, really chopping down the block. So we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. So Keisha Knight Pullman was fired from The Apprentice last week.
Yes.
Right? And some blame the fact because she wouldn't call Bill Cosby and ask him for some money.
Yeah.
Right? Some funds. How do you feel about that? I have my opinion. I want to know yours.
Yeah. Well, did she say that she wouldn't call and ask him because of the current scandal, or she just said
that wasn't even an issue yet? Because this was beforehand.
Oh, it was pre-scandal.
Right. It was
then pre-scandal. She should have called him.
But would you call someone you haven't spoken to in 15, 20 years and be like, look, I'm on The Apprentice. Can you give me $30,000, brother?
If they have deep enough pockets, I would. But, I mean, you got to pick up the phone and make it happen.
He don't do that. That's the thing. He don't. Look, I said it all ghetto about it. He don't do that.
Well, let's talk about his legacy. Keisha Knight Pullman is an alum of Spelman College.
Yes.
And the Cosbys gave $20 million+ to Spelman College. So she could have tied it into the whole Spelman thing and said, hey, I'm calling, and, you know, this is how I want to work it. But I think there's a relationship there that I think, because people know how the Celebrity Apprentice works and how people use their foundation relationships, I think that would have been appropriate for her to do.
All right, so when I call you up to invest in my product, I'm just saying, I'll be calling you up because I'll be like, remember when he was on a ride?
Exactly.
Well, thanks so much, Kwame, for being here. You know, it's truly a pleasure. It's nice to be around smart men. I just love it. So coming up, renowned ESPN sportscaster Stuart Scott died last week after a long battle with cancer. Arise America paid tribute to his broadcasting legend. And we'll have that for you when we return. You're watching Arise and Shine.